Hey, Uncle Winston, how you doing? You busy?
No, I'm sitting up here reading the news on the TV.
Oh, okay, okay.
But what's going on? Where are you?
I'm in South Carolina.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, you haven't left town, huh?
No, no. Calling to touch bases to see how you was doing.
Oh, everything kind of quiet here, man.
All right, that's good.
Nothing much. Just a lot of political nonsense for the country. They took away woman's choice, and
how do you feel? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the fact that these states took away that right, the females' rights?
Oh, there's been a group of people pushing that for a long time. I mean, there's a big push to get rid of the gay movement. There's there's a lot of that. It's just that how do you go backwards?
Mm-hmm.
We got a different world than we got 20 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
In other words, it's like going back to horse and buggy. I mean, at one time when I was coming up, very few women were independent or bachelorettes or any of that. You know, just about all the girls got married.
Right.
Oh, right.
That was the zeitgeist. That was the culture back then.
Sure. And a lot of women were not in the workforce back then. So they basically married their kids, had a house to take care of, and all that type of stuff.
So they had to compromise.
Yeah. Well, the model is gone. Okay, that model is out. Ain't no woman dream of a house and a white picket fence no more.
Right.
Okay, so
she's not. Well, at least in this point, she's not waiting for no Prince Charming to get it for her. She's getting it herself.
Right. Well, here's the main reason. She's educated. Okay? Mm-hmm. In other words, when a woman gets educated and she can have her own career
and make her own money.
Right. The idea of getting married in her 20s and having kids, that is gone.
That's foolish.
Well, I hate to say it's foolish. She may marry a rich guy. But the point is, once you educate a woman, now she's independent.
Facts.
And so consequently, she's in the workforce, all that. And she's sexually free. See, years ago, very few women could run around or have multi-boyfriends and all that.
Right.
Today, man, these women all over the place. And that's like you said. She thinks for herself and she's independent. You know, you can't stop that. You can't go backwards. Yeah. You can't take away educated women and go back to, woman making babies. No, that model is gone.
Yeah. Me personally, I don't have no opinion about the abortion situation one way or the other. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But to be devil's advocate.
Those years are behind you now. You're not worried about.
Right, naturally.
No,
naturally, because like I said, I'm just about to say, because now I'm at the age where I feel that everybody should be responsible. You know what sex brings. You know what the activity copulation brings. You know it's a possibility you're going to bring forth another human being. So, with that being said, why not protect yourself from that? You understand what I'm saying? And I'm talking about to male and females taking the responsibility when they're having these sexual encounters to use the proper precautions so you have to worry about to have an abortion. Now, if there's rape is involved or anything of that sort or incest, I get it. I understand. I'm all for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, I get that.
Here's what the daughter says. Who's the woman that needs abortion the most? Women who are married and women who have kids.
Right.
Okay, you got to keep that in mind. Here's a woman, 32 years old, 2 kids, and she's pregnant again for whatever reason. In other words, one of the things you seem to be implying, of which I agree, is today you have perfect birth control.
Right.
Okay? You know what I mean? In other words, for a woman to get pregnant today, I'm kind of confused.
Right. Because you even have the morning after pill. So it's like, what the hell is, what kind of judgment, what kind of mentality that you're making these judgments on, that you need to have an abortion? Why are you getting to this point?
Not even abortion. How did you get pregnant? What happened?
Right.
You know what I mean? In other words, were you screwed and not taking any birth control?
Right. But and to be fair, I also like to target the men also, because it's like when you meet these women and you ejaculate in them without a protection, what do you think is going to happen? You know what I mean?
Well, like the dynamics of the species is thinking men are more disciplined and so forth, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Tons of men, all men people better do. First of all, I would like to assume today finding a woman or whatever and having sex for a young guy, especially if he's got a job, making his money, got a car, you know,
right,
able to have his own apartment, If he's in that situation, for a woman to get pregnant with him, he's got a hell wrong with you. You know,
right.
Something's wrong. You getting pregnant, girl. I thought you was educated. I thought you was this,
Right.
And in that case, he would make sure that girl get abortion. The last thing he want to have is a potential.
He'll try.
No.
He'll try, but if she doesn't consent to it, you know what I'm saying? If she doesn't agree with you, what if she wants to have the child? Then what you gonna do?
Well, 2 things. When he met the girl and decided to date her or whatever, he has to realize either this woman is just beneath his intellect. In other words, what are you dealing with her for? Now, if she has some intellect, then the next thing you deal with, is she religious? Is she raised by mother and father? Have you met her parents? See, today, most people meet a girl. Chances of meeting the parents is way down the road. Years ago, you had to meet the parents literally the next day.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So today, ain't nobody care about somebody's mother or father.
Right, they don't.
I'm assuming.
Right.
That, you know, you are your own this and that, and I'm not asking you to meet my mom. No. That's what I mean. The model has changed. So the usual model of boy meets girl, meet parents, parents like her, parents like him, That's what it was 30 years ago. But today, no. You have you look at how technology affects people. You have dating groups,
right?
Or dating
sites. Dating sites, right? Correct.
And most women they'll get into a dating thing, and they're not looking to meet a guy to get married, but they're just looking for interesting companionship.
Right.
Sex is almost secondary because most fairly educated women, they know how to not to get pregnant.
Right.
They know.
Right.
So they know when they deal with a dating thing, they meet a guy, maybe something will happen either that first night. And if not, she knows sooner or later she gonna be going to bed with this guy.
Right.
No big thing. All right, because she did it last week or
Right.
whatever. So when you got sexually active people, and we're assuming they're, let's say, in late 20s, early 30s. Okay, because teenagers and stuff, that's a whole different can.
Right. I'm about to say, because you're missing a whole community out there that their logic is not like that.
Yeah.
And the younger generation.
Right. See, and then we deal with income levels. Okay, so
and that's what I'm about to go. With low income level, they have low education, so they don't, you know what I'm saying, their minds
and they have no resources.
Right.
Okay? So if you have no resources, this world gonna whip the hell out of you. That's all it is to it.
But how do you reach them? I think it's imperative that we reach them so that they know, so they won't be doing the things that they're doing to each other, because they're
well, excellent point, and a lot of that is going on. There's a whole bunch of people, churches, all that stuff helping people.
Right.
The problem is you're dealing with the nature of this system that makes people consumers. In other words, if the girl wants to have today's hairstyle and stuff, that could cost her hundreds, close to $1,000. Her hairdo.
Right.
Okay, but it's something that most men, it isn't in their thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But men will pay $50 for a haircut and a shave though at the barbershop every week.
Or you could go to Walmart and get clippers, cut your own hair.
Right.
A lot of that is being done too. In other words, the ability, the last damn thing that's on your mind is your God. If you have regular hair, otherwise you got dreadlocks or you braids, all that, and people have to, that's something else.
Right.
But if you're dealing with just regular person that is used to going to the barber shop or whatever, that you have options. If it becomes too expensive, you can make adjustments. So that's not an issue. But for the typical woman on the same level as him, she got to deal with a whole bunch more. She wants to be attractive. See, today, it is still men, women, and the damn woman has to compete to attract a decent guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? In other words, the ability a woman is raised in this society to attract a guy.
Right.
All right? She has to get fingernails done. Her hairdo got to be great. That's the culture.
Right.
Now, to reach some of these young women, say, hey, you don't need that. You don't have to spend money every two, 3 times a month to have your hair done or get nails. Get that crap up. Learn that, you can meet a lot of men that don't give a damn about that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I've always wondered about that. Like, women get these long eyelashes that men don't care about. They get these elaborate wigs that men don't care about. They get this makeup all over their face, and every man that I've known doesn't like makeup on women, but they still do it. But then I ask them, and they say things like, because it makes me be this type of a person and it brings out the best in me. But whatever the case may be,
Well, see, what you're dealing with is the economics of it. There's an industry out there making women insecure unless they look like the typical
right,
movie stars.
right.
Okay.
Which is big eyes, high cheekbones, and a nice jawline.
All that stuff. Okay. But there's an economy making the young women spend money to look good. Okay. They can't have it, or they can, but they'll feel that most of the people they deal with and stuff, they buy into this economics. So the first thing is when a couple of the girls is out there and they looking freaky and attracting guys, then most of the other girls follow, or this is the way it's done. Because a lot of that should stop when girls are on their own and go away to college or go to college, okay, and they become serious and think about taking care of themselves.
Right.
Then, but there's a lot of women that don't get the college, don't get that chance to become independent and educated in economics and so forth. There's a lot of things they don't know. They're not political, any of that. So, and that's the freedom of America. And that's supposed to be a good thing. But with freedom, a lot of people are easily exploitable.
Right.
And that's what freedom does.
That's the downside of it.
Make some devilish people that can manipulate a lot of. We see it with Trump. We see people. You watch people making choices out there that all you can do is shake your head. Why the hell are they doing that?
Right.
But once again, people are manipulated. So I don't know. It's very rough, and when people have freedoms and you try and snare and guide them, well, all I can say is good luck.
Yeah.
If it ain't fun and they get introduced to drugs and other things, then they got to go through that, and a lot of people, get tore up in some of that, but they learn and they're able to recover. Some never recover, but most will recover as they get older and they learn. But they gotta go through it. A lot of people just gotta go through it.
Right. It's their I like to say that's their karmic debt.
Yeah. Well put, yeah. See, the thing now, and with the economy the way it is, it's your ability to help people is getting tougher and tougher. So a lot of people are not out there
right.
helping a lot of the people.
Right.
See, so much money today is concentrated at the top that there are a lot of people. I mean, consider someone worth $2 or $3 billion. You know what the hell they'll do to get to $10 billion?
Right.
Now that's on that level. Now take someone down to 20 grand, 30 grand a year. Their ability to move up is very tough.
Right.
There's so many people ahead of them that are doing fairly good, but are busting their ass to make more. Okay.
And not to mention that they're cutthroat also.
Yes.
The art of war tactics. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The 48 laws of power people.
In other words, if a corporation can put out a product that they know is that, let's say cigarettes, they know damn well cigarettes is tearing up people's lungs. Now, do you think these rich folks making money manufacturing and selling cigarettes going to say, well, it's a bad product, I think I better stop? No.
Nah, not at all.
No.
Not at all.
Okay? Now, some people smoke and do very well, limit it as best they can, and don't smoke more than a half a pack a day. Their lung ability to survive is much greater than a person smoking a pack or two a day. And what do a pack of cigarettes cost today?
I don't know. Somewhere between $10 is the average, I would say.
Just for one pack, right?
Yes.
See that alone should get people to cut back smoking.
Right. Because I did. You know? It's been 10 years since I smoked cigarettes.
Yeah. In other words, your bell was rung years ago, not just yesterday.
Yeah. It's been 10 years. This year makes 10 years after I've quit smoking cigarettes.
My case, I think, was probably 20, 30 years ago. But most people back then, when cigarettes were 30, 40 cents a pack or something.
Right.
And the ability to smoke was all over the place.
Right. They promoted it. They promoted it in motion picture movies, commercials.
Yeah.
I mean, like y'all, the baby boomers had no choice coming back from World War II, and tobacco was everywhere. So Walter Wiley and all of this bullshit.
In other words, you had number one, what you call a smoking culture.
Right.
You had ashtrays all through the house. Now, the ignorance of cigarettes on the body was not really widely known. So once they started discovering how dangerous and how it tears up the body, the lungs especially, the lungs and heart is affected by smoking, that's when a lot of people stopped. Now, it's so addictive, nicotine, that a lot of people just couldn't stop and didn't care to stop. They just enjoyed it that much. But when, most people, quite a bit, stopped smoking. I would say 40 years ago, close to half the people or more smoke. Now I believe that may be down about 20%. That's a lot less people.
Right.
But there's still, you said it's damn near $10 for a pack of cigarettes.
The average between all of the 53 states.
Cigarettes are not left up there in front. You have to reach it because it's so expensive and valuable.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they're still, as an industry, doing pretty good because of the cost of it. When it was cheap, man, everybody smoked. Ain't nobody thought of it or thought of lungs or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, over the last 20, 30 years, if you smoking, then you obviously, you're not reading the paper, you're not aware of certain things. Because it's almost suicidal. It's almost shaving 20, 30 years off your life.
Right.
So that's that. But once again, there's an economy around that. And in a free society, they're able to advertise and entice it. Now look at this. They advertise drugs. This here could stop urine problems. You take this could stop you from having headaches. They advertise prescription drugs on TV.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only country in the world that advertised. First of all, back to the thing when we mentioned the abortion thing.
Right.
The biggest problem in this country is you don't have universal health care. Every major other country in the world has universal health care.
It's because this is a capitalist. It's because it's a capitalist society.
No, all of Europe is capitalist. All of it. All of China, all of Japan is capitalist. you know.
So what distinguishes our capitalism from their capitalism to where they're thriving and where we're suffering?
Well, you answered a hell of a question there. I would answer it this way. The thing in America, when you had unions going back to after World War II,
Mm-hmm.
and all these soldiers came back, and you know, with the veterans bills and stuff, you were able to get a house at the time. Houses was only $20,000, and with the VA loans and stuff, no down payment, a lot of people were able to buy houses. You know, now most of the people who used VA loans back in the 50s, they're dead and gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that kind of wealth of home ownership, $20,000 house, by the time the 60 came along, it was twice as much. It's now 40, 50,000. And by the time the 70s came along, most houses over 100 grand. So the progression of this system, that when they came back from World War II, the thing of healthcare came through your job in unions. Remember, most people were in unions in the 50s.
Right.
Whether it was teachers union, truck driver. Remember, back then, you had powerful unions such as you had the Teamsters union. You had the teachers union. You still have a teachers union, but they're not as strong as the unions were going back 50 years. So you had unions, and what happened, unions forced the companies to give people benefits, and it ended up most people were getting health care through their employment. And most people only did one job and retired from. So you had a stable system that getting your health care through your job was common. The problem is unions are tore up. Most people are not in unions no more.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now, when you get a job, hopefully your job had benefits that pay for most of the health care. Now, the Democrats have been fighting for the last 10, 20 years. At least Obama brought about, the Affordable Care Act.
Right.
And that brought a lot of people didn't have insurance into getting insurance. Now, what you can get to see right now, you have these large companies, Cigna, Blue Cross, all these big outfits that control the medical schools, the doctors, and all that. So for the government, and now, because you don't have unions, see, at one time, years ago, you had three people sat at that table. You had the government, the company, and the unions, which represented the workers. Now the only ones at the table is the corporation and the government.
Right.
Okay.
And the employee, aka the worker, is excluded from.
Right. He has no bargaining in this thing now. And when you just have companies and you just have government, well, now the companies buy up the politics, the government, congressman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So now when the congressman runs, who pays for his campaign? Corporation give them $200,000 and says, hey, if you make it, remember now, you pass bills in my company's favor. Now, no other country in the world does this. They went, most other governments, Canada, just north of us, they, the company, the healthcare hospitals and doctors are all paid for through the government, and the government runs it. There's no, looks like blowing, so I can barely hear you.
story?
Okay.
Holland is it's a plane flying over. You know, I'm in Beaufort, South Carolina. You know, and across the river is the air station, the Marine Corps air station, and every now and then they do their procedures and stuff.
Not the Paris Island thing.
No, not Paris Island. This is different from Paris Island. This is the air station, the Marine Corps air station. Yeah.
Yeah, Marine Corps is not air, but there's an air thing there, huh?
Yeah, they have an air base here. Apparently, all of the armed forces have a little
their
bit.
own air thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, the big thing is now you got a voluntary army, and the other big thing is you don't need as many military people now. So a lot of people back in the workforce.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because one of the things happened the last 30 years also, whereas before that, the military was about 9-1 men. Now, the last 30 years, it's now probably 7-3. That's a lot of women in there now. So things have changed a ton. So when it comes down to that military thing, you find a lot more women in it, just like on police force. You got a lot of women on police force.
Right.
Some of them are running the police department. You know,
but they don't talk about that though.
When they got rid of take away a woman's choice, they really shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
You know, because women gonna come back on that. They're not gonna forget this one. I don't know how the Republicans gonna rationalize it, because now you got gay community, you got transgender, you got intermarriage, interracial marriages, you got everything go.
Right.
And that's probably the way it should be. People are people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what two people do in their own house, what do I care? You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, as much as I may personally not like abortion or something, but when a woman feels it's going to mess her life up, I would never, ever stop her from making her choice.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to lose sleep on that.
Right. That's her business.
Yeah. You can't tell me that a 2-week fetus is the same legal rights as a full-grown woman.
Right.
That doesn't make no sense. Not only that, but I'm sitting in my house. Mm-hmm. There's a woman that's 2 weeks pregnant, and she gets rid of the fetus. How would I know?
Right.
You know what I mean? In other words, where's her privacy? So you gonna find that this woman did something that she's not pregnant no more? You wanna get it? You gonna violate her privacy and say, what did you happen to the fetus? The fetus is a human being.
Okay.
No.
In playing devil's advocate.
Yes.
What about the father, the paternal aspect of it? What if he doesn't want her to follow through and she does it anyway? How do you feel about that?
That's less than 0.5% of all the abortions. Less. That doesn't figure into it at all. In other words, any two people who are married, as to when they have babies, very few of them on the same page.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The thing is, if a baby comes along and they both, let's say, didn't want it, but at a certain point she said, I think I want to have this kid.
Right.
And Wade Cole said, hey, let's push this off another 3 years. Don't have that baby this year. Then that's a disagreement.
We trying to buy that home in the Florida Keys. We saving up for.
Or forget the economic reason. what I mean? Forget the economic reason. That seems to drive it, really. But let's forget, it's the fact that two individuals have a different viewpoint as when they become parents. Or they already got two kids. And she's pregnant and she damn sure don't want to have another kid. Now, they're not having economic troubles or none of that. And he's saying, what's wrong with 3 kids? And she's saying, no. Now, that could be a problem, you know what I mean?
Go back to your dad?
that could be a hell of a problem.
But if you're your dad, I'll go with you with your dad, but I'm not going up there.
Alright, no problem. I'm going to Edmonds first.
Alright. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. You in the midst of something?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
A little interlude.
Oh, that's all right. See, the thing is that two people could disagree, but ultimately, that woman goes through the 9 months of carrying that kid. I don't care who the guy is, husband, father, whatever, you know, it ain't his choice. That's it.
Okay.
See, number one, there's still a very small possibility, but having that baby could take her life. I mean, since they came out with this, no abortion mess.
Right.
I'm hearing stories that women have to deal with.
Right.
That I never thought of before.
Like I said, I don't have no opinion either way. I'm just curious to other people's opinions and stuff.
Well, right. In other words, you have no opinion because you're not faced with the problem.
Right, yeah, pretty much.
But politically, we do have to realize either we're for people having freedoms or we're for taking away freedoms.
As simple as that.
See, right now, the Republican Party, they want to take away abortion. Then they're going to come away for taking away gay people. In other words, what they're talking is states' rights. Now, at one time, lynching black folks was legal. Now, can they go back to that? Absolutely. Some states, you give them the control of that. See, that's where parts of the country is beginning to take power. See, most of this country's population, 300-some million people, 70% live in urban areas.
That is correct.
Now, political power, some of these red states, remember, a state with only 500,000 people, North Dakota, has 2 senators as much as a state with 40 million people as California. That is insanity.
Fact.
Okay? That is insanity.
Definitely.
Okay? So, if that's the way the political system is in America, then a lot of thinking people are going to be tore up. So if the red state people feel abortion is bad and they push their political thing, and you got several states that are conservative and nutty as hell that are passing bills that all of us have to live by. Now, sooner or later, things are going to explode. It's going to explode over that abortion thing. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
It's now a matter of when we come to the thing of the gun thing. So now you got, 18-year-old kid turns 18, he could go out there and buy a AR-15. Now,
that's ridiculous.
In other words, it makes no sense. That 18-year-old he can't just go buy a car and start driving it.
Right.
He got to get a license. He got to make sure he's tested. He got to show he can operate it and all that.
Exactly.
Okay? But an AR-15 could take 100 people's lives in 1 minute.
Right.
Now, it's at a certain point, you couldn't take a car, and if you tried to kill 50 people with that car, you'll end up killing yourself first.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're going to have to run up the sidewalk, and at that point, you're going to probably only get one person.
And they most recently tried that several times.
Yeah, right. So, but hey, we're in this free society, and these red states have a lot of power. They have a lot of power. So if they get together and say, hey, let's go back to the old days where a woman can't have an abortion. Well, they did it. They did it. Now the next thing they're coming for is the gay people. Now, the amount of people who are gay, legally married, running families and all that, millions of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you take away two people's right to be married and live in their private life. Well, good luck with that.
Right.
That's going to cause a nightmare. But that's where we're stuck. We're stuck. We're stuck. You got so many freedoms here that now you got certain people manipulate large peoples, and they're able to do things that make no sense. It just doesn't make no sense.
Yeah.
You know.
But at the end of it all, are you really surprised with how the world has turned out? I'm not surprised at all.
Well,
I'm not impressed.
Some things surprise you, some things don't. Because I'll put it like this, or I'll put it more practically for you. Do you see the end of America?
Do I see it?
Yeah.
Well,
no. I don't think anybody walking around see the end of America. You know, all this good stuff. We got money. We got the best military.
Yeah.
How the hell are you going to stop this place?
that's a very broad question because
That's a damn right.
that's a hell of a question because when you say that, it's like, do you mean end of America as a concept, like evolving into something else?
Well, here's the way I'm putting it. Okay, here's the way I'm putting it. You've heard of the Roman Empire.
But we still have little,
How long did that Roman Empire last?
like some thousands of years, like 1,000 years or something like that. But we still have some remnants of their influence in our society today. As a matter of fact, you know, if you can look at the Masonic structures of the buildings in the Capitol. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
The obelisk from Egypt.
In other words, man takes technology, improves it, and keep moving on. I mean, in our lifetime, I don't know if you ever remember what it was called, a phone booth.
What's that?
Have you ever seen a phone booth where people go put a dime in to make a phone call?
Of course. I was born 1973. Of course.
So, in other words, well, I don't know, but it's been gone for a fairly long time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, in your hand, with the smartphone, you have more information than a library.
Thanks.
Now, that's technology moving on and on and on. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when you say the Roman Empire would like the, the masonry and the buildings and so forth, sure, it continued, you improve on it, all that. But what I'm talking about is that this country, and when I say the end of it, it evolves, it's going to evolve into something else. I don't know if it'll necessarily end.
Right.
Everybody in America dies. No.
Right. That's
that.
That's a little bit too far-fetched.
That's another thing. In other words, whether a volcano erupts in the middle of this country, the biggest volcano ever, and wipes out half the country, that's something else, But we're talking about normal life where people eat, sleep, go to bed, raise their kids, and you have a functioning thing of 300 million people. Some doing it with millions of dollars, some doing it with very little money. But it's an ongoing proposition. The problem is you are governed by a constitution that was formed, how many years ago? It was from 1770?
76, yeah.
Yeah. So now you're dealing with, you're going on 300 years. So in 300 years, you have basically the same political structure that goes back to that. Now you have to change all this political nonsense. It's just mandatory. Otherwise, what we're having now is a lot of chaos. Okay? Mm-hmm. In other words, this country elected Donald Trump president, and he never ran for any other public office. He never ran for the school board, ever.
Right.
And yet he got to be president of the United States. Now, he comes in, and all the guidelines of politicians get to be president, they continue pretty much 80 to 90% of what the previous president was doing. You had a chain of events that basically continuously, the difference in Republicans and Democrats over the years was kind of slight. You didn't have a Republican come in and throw out everything that was there. No. You had the House that was, how many people in the House? About 400. Mm-hmm. So you had this balance, and you just had a two-party system. See, most of the countries got more than two parties. And in the case of a lot of European countries, they have what you call a parliamentary system, where you got about 8 or 9 parties. And to run a government, you have to have some of all these parties, percentage-wise, that of the election, that they're part of the government, whether it's going to be the agriculture, whether it's going to be the military, all these different things to run a government. Some of all these parties is in all of them, and the democratic system. See, the democratic system here would elect the president. You have the electoral college, and you have this electorate thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas Hillary Clinton had 3 million more votes than Trump, but yet she didn't have the electoral college votes, right. And Trump got to be president. Now, how do you explain democracy to any other person in the world? You can't explain that. No, you can't.
I would say for the people, somebody representing. Somebody that a democracy is where you get one person to represent the people, I guess, right? That's what they teach us.
Democracy is a majority rule, put it simply.
Right.
Okay? Like a family. You take a vote or a company, whatever. You don't let the guy who has the least amount in his place end up running the whole show.
Right.
You always spread it. Now you have some dictatorships that have been horrendous, messed up a lot of people.
Right.
That's not good. That's not good either. Okay.
Right.
But a democratic system you don't have here. You now have 50 states, some states down, because they didn't fully get rid of Roe versus Wade. You have about a third the country outright banning abortion, and the other 2/3 states have it. So right